Hello, everyone, and welcome to Application of Zotero. My name is Caitlin Hennessy, and I am the Program Coordinator at Global Connections. Tonight, we have Lorena O'English from WSU Libraries joining us, and she's going to share how we can effectively use Zotero and all its tools. Please do use the chat box throughout the evening to share discussion points, or if you have any questions, also feel free to use that. We will answer them at the end of the session. And if you have any technical difficulties, please do let us know and we'll do our best to help you remotely. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Lorena and we'll get started.
All right. So what we're going to do today is talk about Zotero, kind of, really the application of Zotero. Last week when we talked about Zotero, we were really focused on getting Zotero set up and learning how to put things inside of Zotero. And now what we want to do is we want to take things out and put them in our papers or share them with other people, etc. So that's what we're going to do. So this session, what we're going to cover is a bit of catch up from last week's part 1 session, and that I'll actually give you, those of you who were here last week, I'll give you the opportunity to ask me any quick question. And I'll tell you, honestly, I may not answer them here. What I might do is take the question and then respond to it with a screencast, which I will post up on my Zotero library guide, which we're going to look at again in a few minutes. We'll also be talking about bibliographies and reports, ways to kind of extract information from your Zotero library. You're going to talk about how you actually would use Zotero when you're writing a paper. We'll learn 2 different ways to actually insert references into a Word document or other word processing document. And then we're going to talk about online Zotero, kind of uploading your data, your items to Zotero.org. And we'll talk about collaborating with Zotero. So that's the agenda. All right, let's go ahead and start with catching up from last week. And the first thing I really wanted to do here is I wanted to kind of take us all to our library guide. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy the URL in here. Although really what I'm going to do is, let's get rid of Zotero here. I'm taking us to our library homepage because I just want to make sure everybody is aware of the second easiest way to get to the Zotero guide. And the first, of course, is if you have the direct URL. But the second is to go to the WSU Libraries page, libraries.wsu.edu, and then go to Subject and Resource Guides. And then I'm just going to type the word Zotero in. And that will take me to Zotero at the WSU Libraries. And here's our guide. So I want to kind of go over a few things that I kind of gave short shrift to last week to make sure everyone is aware of them. The first, of course, is the Global Connections tab at the very end. And this has some resources, a handout, some screencasts, some of which I've made, some of which I've taken from Zotero, and some other information over here. But I want to highlight some of the other tabs. Setting up your Zotero library preferences goes over what I talked about last week. And you may remember that one of the things that I said was that a lot of people hear Zotero is great and they download it, and it turns out it doesn't actually work the way they thought it would, and they get really frustrated by it. And a lot of times it's because their preferences aren't set up right. So taking a few minutes to do that can really make a very big difference to actually have Zotero work properly. And I've got some other things as well, a little bit about searching and annotating PDFs, a little bit about Zotero standalone, which is what you're going to use if you use Zotero with, say, Chrome or Safari, and as well as a bunch of other things over here, some of which you can take a look at that we're not going to get into detail. The one I do want to emphasize is this one. Let me find it over here. I have so much stuff on this. This is a very important one, talking about moving to and fro Zotero and backing things up. And this is what you're going to use if you want to back up your Zotero library to an external hard drive, which I highly recommend, or if you've got a new computer and you want to move your Zotero library from one computer to another, or if you use Zotero and you love it, but you go to a place where everybody else uses Mendeley or EndNote or something else, and so you need to move Zotero, you move your library out of Zotero and into something else. So I really want to emphasize all of these particular guides. But for now, I'm just going to go back to our Global Connections guide, and we'll go ahead then and proceed with the PowerPoint. So The next thing I wanted to do is give you all an opportunity to actually ask me questions about sort of, and I'm going to switch over so I can actually see the questions here. If you have any questions about what we covered last week, is there anything where you'd kind of like for me to actually show the difference between capturing a blog post and a web page, or talk a little bit more about different sorts of resources that you might find in the WSU libraries, or go over capturing something with a in a library database. So I'll give you a chance to ask any questions that you might have. And if you don't have questions now, that's great. Remember, my contact information is on my main slide. Let's go back over here, right over here, and you're welcome to ask me any questions at any point. And I don't guarantee to always know the answer. A lot of times the way I learn things is people ask me something that I don't know, and I have to go find out, and then I learn and they learn. In fact, as I go back and forth between things, one of the items on my Zotero library guide is my Lorena Zotero FAQ, which is around here someplace. Let me go ahead and find it. And a lot of what's on this is actually from questions that people asked me that I didn't have the answer to, or questions that I asked myself that I didn't have the answer to. You know, how do I put an italic in an article title, which might come up, say, for example, I'm actually referencing a printed work, Hamlet, and I needed to be italicized in my bibliography. So you can see there's a bunch of things right over there. So I'm going to go back over to our PowerPoint, which I've lost. There we are. So anybody have any questions? Let's see. Priscilla, I actually, you know, you've asked that I do a quick overview, and I can't really do that. I can show you very briefly how it works, but the video from last week will be up soon, and I also have a number of tools on my Zotero library guide that will kind of help you get started. In fact, let's just take a quick look. So what I'm going to do is I'm going over here to Firefox, and I've got Zotero installed on Firefox because it's easier with this webinar, but of course we could be using it in anything else as well. So I actually downloaded it from the Zotero homepage. There we are, right over here. And Zotero has some very good documentation that will actually teach you how to use it. I like the screencast tutorials, and you can see it kind of goes through kind of soup to nuts, getting it, you know, installing it, getting stuff into your library, etc. But I'm going to go back over to our library catalog, and I'm going to do a search. I will do my search for voter turnout. And our library catalog, a little bit weird because of how it works, but if, for example, I want to add in this particular article, Disenfranchising the Enfranchised, I can go over, and I'm going to open this in another tab. And I do that so I have a record. And you can see over here, there's going to be a little, let's look at the details, a little bit more information about our article. We assume, okay, this looks good. And then I can go over and I can click on this little icon here. And you can see there's kind of a crimson box down in the corner that's adding this item to my Zotero library. Actually, I have no idea where I'm adding it to because I didn't have Zotero open. So we might have to look around to find it. But it's going to be right over here. Let's look at most recent thing added. Oops, I reversed it. Oh, no, it's not there. Let's go find it. It's still trying to add it. Okay. Apparently, I don't know where I added it to. Let's go back and try this again. So I'm going to actually choose a collection here. And now I'm going to go over here and add it. And you can see there it is, Disenfranchised and Enfranchised. And notice that one of the things I might do is I might change my title font to sentence case because some citation styles require me to have capital case and other sentence case. And that's kind of a hallmark of Zotero. Kind of the mantra for putting stuff in your library is measure twice, cut once. So you might want to think about the fact that differing citation styles require different things. So you want to always put in the most information available. Always put in full names if possible, and make sure that your title is in sentence case rather than capital case, so it'll work with citation styles that require sentence case as well as citation styles that require capital case. So that's just a really brief demonstration of Zotero. There's a lot more, but I think that what's on the Zotero homepage and on my library guide will help you. But I think you can kind of get a sense that when we downloaded this particular article, we got all this bibliographic information, and we'll shortly see how we can use this to create citations. And then to actually get the full text of the article, I'm going to go to Access Options. I'm going to go find this in Sage. Here's my PDF. And what I'm going to do is, as long as I actually have a PDF extension here, I'm just going to take this and I'm going to drag it over my title there. And shortly, this one came up a little bit weird. You notice here that this says full PDF.html. That's not always going to work. So what I might have to do in this case is download it a different way. I'm just going to go ahead and save it to Zotero. There's like 6 different ways to add something to your Zotero library. Notice what I'm going to do. There's my PDF. I'm going to drag it onto my item. I'm going to rename it to make it tidy, and voila. Now I have the record, I have this link, and then here I have the PDF. And you can see it's a 23-page PDF. I have it forever. And as long as it is an index PDF, that is a PDF that is not a picture PDF, but a PDF where you can do a Control F and find words, I'll actually be able to search inside of it as well, making Zotero not just bibliographic information and articles and notes, but also the inside of the PDF, so a big database of me. Speaking of notes, if I go back up here to my parent, using Zotero's terminology, you'll see in addition to my citation information, I can add notes, I can organize with tags, and I can connect this to other resources using Related. So that's kind of a very brief overview of what Zotero is kind of all about. Any other questions? All right, so what we're going to do today is we're going to start off talking about bibliographies and reports, kind of moving in this idea of getting stuff out of Zotero. So, and these can both be very handy. And even though I said bibliographies first and reports second, I'm actually going to do reports first. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to get rid of this and put us at an empty tab because it's going to make things a little bit tidier. What I'm going to do is I have a collection here. This is my Global Connections class collection. Let's tidy this a little bit. And so I'm going to choose a couple of things. I'm going to choose the whole collection. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on this collection and I'm going to say generate a report. And when I generate a report, let's close down our Zotero window, look what it did. It actually gave me a web page, and I can copy all of this into a Word document or do whatever I want with it, but it has every single thing that I had. All of the citation information, the abstract if it downloaded it. You can see it's not actually giving me the attachment, but it's telling me I had an attachment. And then if I have notes, I have those. If I have tags, every single thing is here except the actual, here you can see some tags that I have, except the actual content of the PDFs. And links here actually work. If I click on these, they're going to take me to whatever the link will take me to. So this can be really kind of nice as a way of just kind of capturing a lot of information at once. If you ever were going to be teaching a class, for example, something that might be kind of fun would be to have your students actually create Zotero reports and then kind of write a Zotero note about why they assigned the tags that they assigned as a self-organizing function. But something else that can be handy with this is I can actually search if I want. I can do a Control F and I can search for a particular word, T-U-R-N-O-U-T. Let's actually go to all the places that mention the word turnout. And this can be kind of handy if I'm searching for something really specific. And in this particular case, I did a Zotero report of my whole collection, but I could have done it just for individual items as well. So it can be kind of a handy way to sort, as well as a way to kind of get a printout that's kind of convenient if I want to take it and show it to my professor, etc. So that's one way in which we can actually extract information from our Zotero. So I'm going to kind of close this down and go back over, open up my Zotero again. Now the second thing we're going to do is create a bibliography. And what I'm going to do here is I am minimizing my screen a little bit so you can see that I have a Word document here. So I'm going to go ahead and create, I'm just going to capture a couple of things. I'll get disenfranchising and how the states, notice I hold the Control button and that lets me kind of select things. So I have 4 things here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click. Now the first part of my right-click menu actually is just about the very first article that I have, disenfranchising. That would enable me to view the PDF, view any screenshots that I have, open up a PDF in an external viewer, or show where my files are actually located. I can also, now after this, I start going to where I work with everything that I've highlighted using my control button. I can remove these from my collection. And if I remove them from collection, they are gone from global connections, but they still exist in my library. However, if I move them to the trash, gone from global connections, gone from my library, they go to the trash, where in 30 days or earlier, they're going to disappear just like any other trashed file. I can also merge items. I might merge items if by accident I actually ended up with 2 copies of the same thing and I don't want version control problems, so I might merge them. We'll learn another reason why I might want to merge duplicate items rather than deleting one when we talk about using Zotero with Microsoft Word. I can export them. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And then I can create a bibliography. So I'm going to, if I save this as a rich text file, that basically saves it as a Word document. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy it to a clipboard, click on OK. Then I'm going to go over here to this Word document, and I'm going to paste it in, Control V. And you may notice that I think, I'm not really sure if this happened this time, but I didn't check what citation style I have. It's probably APA. That's usually what I use. The citation style of this is going to be whatever citation style I set up in my preferences last week, which I think was APA. And I may, that looks about 1 inch. I think I actually did it right this time. But you can see it actually created a bibliography. However, it created it in the order in which I did it. It's not alphabetical or anything else. It's just like, you know, from this to this to this. So it's a linear sort of organization. But that might be a way in which I can actually create something, just to kind of capture things, either a whole collection or individual items, and just capture them and paste them in. All right. Let me kind of move my, I have to make sure that I kind of keep up with myself on my PowerPoint slides, because otherwise I forget stuff that's really important. While I'm doing that, let me check the chat window and make sure anybody has any questions. Okay, so you can see that there are some other types of bibliographies that I can do as well. Like I said, I could print it out and then it would just print it out like we saw it. If I saved it as a rich text file, that would essentially save it as a Word document, and when I opened it up, it would look exactly like the one in which I did. So that's a really basic way of getting stuff out, but honestly, not the most useful way. We're going to learn some more useful things to actually do. Okay, so I'm going to cancel this out. And let's go on and actually look at our PowerPoint slide. And now we're going to learn another way that's a little bit more useful for actually extracting Zotero items into a paper. And when I say paper, what I really mean is that this works with any sort of word processing document. So it'll work with Microsoft Word. If you are a Mac person and you use Pages or Papers or whatever it's called, it'll work with that. It'll work with email. It'll work with Google Docs. Pretty much, you know, I can put it in OneNote or Evernote or any sort of document type program. So let's go ahead and see how it works. So I'm going to open up my Word document again, and you can see what I have is what, for this to work, I want to kind of have both of these on screen. And I have a really nice wide monitor. That's not always the case, so sometimes I have to kind of, you know, put my Zotero kind of over this a little bit, but wide monitors are wonderful. All right, so what I'm going to do is let's go check our preferences. So I'm going to go back over to my action menu, the one with the little rotating dial on, and I'm going to check my preferences to see what my default export style is, and it looked like it's APA 6th edition. All right, we'll go ahead and stick with that. So I'm going to click on OK. So what I'm going to do is, let's say I'm doing something here. I'm writing something. Let's go make sure that we are at the edge. Okay. You can see, actually, I was wrong. This is in a little bit instead of where I should be. I'm out of the margins. I'm going to show you how to fix that. Okay, so I'm doing something. Now is the time for a citation. And then what I'm going to do is whatever it is that I'm ready to cite, I'm going to hold down the Shift key, and I'm going to drag it in. Ta-da! There's my citation. And stuff. Then later on, when I'm ready for my bibliography, I would go over and I would take this and I would kind of drag it over here. Uh-oh, notice my problem. It's out of the margins. Not a big deal. While it is gray like that, all I have to do is take my mouse over to the edges and then do Control M. And that will fix it. And now it's properly done. for APA style. So that would be what I would do. The next thing that I want to do, I'm just going to do the same thing. I keep on having to do that Control M. It's really irritating. I don't know why it does that, but it's a really easy fix, so it's really not that much of a problem. So the drag and drop method can be really convenient. If you don't use Microsoft Word, it's the only, or if you don't use LibreOffice, which is sort of an open source version of Microsoft Word, this is the only way in which you can actually insert your citations in. So if you're a Mac user and you're using Mac's word processing software, or you really like to write your stuff in Google Docs, this would be what you use. And you can see you're just going to basically have them both open and drag them in. And so that's a pretty good way of actually making it work. And honestly, there are quite a few people who actually only use this method, who don't use Zotero's word plugin, because they say this is really what they need. This will really work the way they want it to. But we're going to see that using Zotero's word plugin actually gives us a little bit more bells and whistles for working with sources. So, you know, your choice. But a lot of people do actually like this. All right. So let's go back to my PowerPoint to keep me under control. And we saw how the Control M works. You pretty much always have to do this with APA and sometimes with other citation styles. You really want to watch your margins to make sure that they are actually where they should be. Not sure why Zotero does this, but it does. All right. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to cross my fingers and hope this works, because, you know, anytime you're doing something live, you never quite know, which is always why you don't wait till the last minute to do stuff. But what we're going to do is we're going to see how we can use Zotero plugin for Microsoft Word. And I do want to emphasize that this works with both Word for Windows and Word for Macs, and LibreOffice or OpenOffice, although nobody uses OpenOffice anymore. I should have put LibreOffice in here, so we'll just pretend that I wrote LibreOffice in etc. All right, let's see how it works. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and erase all of this to kind of put us back at the top. And I need to go back to my, I'm going to actually close this. Let's see, save. All right, because I need to actually install the Zotero plugin that makes Zotero work with Microsoft Word. So I need to go back to the Zotero page. Let's close my Zotero window here. And if I had actually used Zotero for Zotero standalone, it would automatically add this plugin that I'm going to add, but I'm using Zotero for Firefox, so I have to add the plug separately. So you can see there's a link here, add a plug for Word or LibreOffice. So I'm going to go there, and I want this Word for Windows plugin, this one right here. And this will give me a lot of information about using it, because sometimes, you know, I might have a problem when I'm installing it. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Allow. And because this is a plugin, I have to install it, and I have to restart my Firefox window, but it will actually bring back all of my tabs along the way. So cross your fingers. What we're going to do is we're going to minimize a little bit, and we're going to go over and open up that Word document. And yes, if you look at the Word document, you'll see that it has a new plugin here that says Zotero. So let's go ahead and focus on this. All right, we're ready to make this go. First thing we want to do is look at our document preferences. If we don't change our document preferences, it'll be whatever we had last. So I'm going to choose a citation style that I want, which I want to be APA, and I'm going to go ahead and accept this. All right, I'm ready to go. So I'm going to click on Add. Let's go ahead and start writing something. This is what I am writing. Okay, sounds great. I'm going to add a citation. Now, let's actually bring this window. Oh, it looks like, okay, I'm going to have to take a second here and see if I can move this. No, okay. I'm going to have to change our windows so we can actually show you how this works. So let's go ahead and share my application. Yes, all right, yay, okay, that was difficult. All right, and it looks a little bit weird, and to be honest, I really hate the way this looks because I have to kind of assume I know what I'm doing, and I don't always do it. So what I'm gonna, because it's like, oh, you know that you want, oh, English, whatever, whatever, but I'm gonna go ahead and say I like the classic view, because the classic view, and now I'm gonna have to, let's see, there we are. What the classic view does is it actually opens up my Zotero window. So let's minimize this and bring this over here. And I can say I was going to go ahead and cite this. So I'm going to, and notice when I do this that it gives me an option to put in a page. Depending on the citation style that I use, I can suppress the author, and I can also put in a prefix or a suffix. So I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, there we are. Okay, and now I want something else. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to add and edit my citation. Good. This time I'm going to go ahead and create classic view again, and I'm going to say it's this one right over here, but this time I'm just going to do that. Okay, let's make it more interesting. So this time I want to do multiple citations, because you do that sometimes. You know, you might be citing more than one thing. So I'm going to edit my citation, choose my classic view, and there's a way actually to permanently change it to classic view. And I'm going to say multiple sources. And I'm like, what do I want? Let's see. How about voter turnout? So let's move it over. And let's also use, go find something else from this collection, dangers. I don't know what that is. And notice if I didn't like the order that I have, unlike when I'm working with the drag and drop method, I can change the order. I can actually say, no, I want this to go first. Okay, so now if I click on OK, there it shows up. And a final thing that I want to demonstrate is we're going to go ahead and this time we're going to do something a little bit more complicated, all right? So I'm going to say, let's mix it up even more, exclamation point. I'm ready to go add, edit citation. I choose classic view. And this time what I want to do is I'm going to choose multiple sources. So I'm going to say, let's say diagram, digital citizen, yeah, and diagrams, yeah. But what I want to do is for diagrams, I want to put in a note. Like it can be like a see also note or some sort, you know, whatever you might do, but probably most likely see also. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say see also in, did I spell that right? Yes, in the suffix field. And you'll see why in just a second. So I'm going to go ahead and click on OK. And you can see that by putting see also in the suffix view, oops, I did that wrong, didn't I? Let's see. Let's try that again. Oops. Again, add, edit citation, classic view. You know, these things go wrong every so often. That's right. I want it in the prefix view. You know, you'd be surprised how often I make that error. You know, ever noticed how sometimes when you do something wrong the first time, you keep on doing it wrong, even though you know better? Well, that's kind of what I do with this. So this time I'm going to do it right. I'm going to choose a couple of things for my multiple citations. I don't know what this is. Let's add this one too. Then I'm going to say I want to add in a see also note for digital citizenship, but it has to be a prefix. See also, I'll put in a colon, click on OK, and you can see there it shows up after the colon. So I put in my first entry and then semicolon, see also, etc. So it's much more readable. All right, now what I'm ready to do is actually make my bibliography. So all I have to do is go to Zotero, and I am going to click on Insert Bibliography, and ta-da, there it is, based upon APA style. All right, now that's the basic way. Let's talk about some other things that happen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to erase my bibliography. Hope that doesn't cause me problems later. And I'm going to go back up here and I'm going to say, you know, what if for some reason I want to edit something? What if I looked at Erickson and I realized that that's a mistake? Erickson actually spells her name without a K. So what I can do is I can open up my Zotero library. Let's go over here to Zotero. And let's go find, I have no idea what that one was. So I'm going to, let's see, where's Erickson? I have no idea where Erickson is. All right, so we're just going to arbitrarily choose something else. Oakleaf, here we are. Okay. Okay, there we are, Oakleaf. And I'm going to say, Oakleaf, let's say we're going to spell your name with a Y instead of a E. So I made a change there. And now what I'm going to do is if I go back over to my Zotero library, I'm going to go over and I'm going to hit refresh. And I chose the wrong one. I chose the wrong Oakleaf. Here, let's go ahead and find the right Oakleaf. See, this is, you know, I really need to, I'm like, what am I doing here? Let's go find actually what's a better example, somebody with a unique name. Um, let's just add something in right now that I know I'll do. We're going to add in, we're going to add in disenfranchising the enfranchised. Here we are in global connections. We're going to add in disenfranchising the connections. There we are. Okay. King and Erickson. So I'm going to go back over to my global connections. Okay, now I'm like, okay, Erickson, spelled her name wrong. So let's go over here, and I'm going to go to Erickson, and I'm going to say, oh, she really has 2 Ks in her name. So I changed her name to Erickson like that. And I'm going to go back, and when I hit refresh, oh, I didn't save it. When I go back to my document and I hit refresh, notice how there's 2 Ks there. Because what I've done is when I'm working with this, I actually have a relationship between the document and my Zotero library. So if it turns out I did something wrong and it's something where I can quickly make a change in my Zotero library, when I refresh it, the change is made automatically. So that's great when it's something where I can actually go change it inside my Zotero library, when it actually is a problem with the information in the bibliographic data in these fields. But sometimes it's a problem with the citation itself, and I might have to make an adjustment because Zotero doesn't always do citations correctly. So I want to show you something that's a little bit aggravating that we have to work with. So let's say I'm going to go back over here to King and Erickson. Actually, let's just start a whole new one to make this more clear. I'm going to add my citation. We're going to add this as a classic view. We're going to add this voter turnout, Kenzie. Click on OK. Where's voter turnout, Kenzie? We'll do education. No, let's find something that's actually workable. Faculty perceptions. There we are, Gulkinson. Okay, there's Gulkinson. Okay, so let's say there's something wrong with the citation. I don't know, I want to put a page number in or something, even though the citation style doesn't require it. If I go in and I edit it, I'm going to go up here where it says Add Edit Citation. And if I add anything, let's go ahead and say I'm going to suppress the author. Because I forgot to suppress the author when I was actually writing this, and I'd already mentioned Gulkinson in the preliminary text before the citation. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. Okay. Let's try that again. That's not a good example. But I'm just going to go ahead and add in a page number, 15. Okay, open in my library, etc. I'm totally messing this up. But anyway, actually, to be honest, this isn't really where the problems are, so we're just going to kind of ignore that for now. But so embarrassing. I'm going to show you where the problem really comes in, which is with the bibliography. So I'm going to go ahead and insert my bibliography, which I've completely lost because I started all over again. So we're just going to delete the whole thing and just throw in some citations. Okay, let's throw in you. See, you know, everything always goes wrong in webinars for me. Let's just go ahead and start all over again. Classic view, and I'm going to go to my library. I'm going to go over to Global Connections. I'm going to choose Disenfranchising the Enfranchisement, and we're going to go ahead and add in another citation, which is How the State Shaped the Nation. There we are. So I have 2 citations. Okay, so now I have my bibliography, and I'm going to insert it. There it is. It looks great. It's the most amazing bibliography, but maybe there's something wrong. Okay, so here's where we start getting problems. I'm going to click on Edit the Bibliography, and I got to bring my window in over here. And I get this edit window, and it's telling me something really important. If I edit a citation in the editor, it will no longer update to reflect the changes in your database or the citation style. So if I make a change here, let's choose How the States, and I'm going to say, I'm just going to say, what shall I say? We'll just say University of Chicago instead of the University of Chicago. Just a simple change. And then we'll also, just to make it really more obvious, we're going to put a QQQ next to Springer. So I'm going to click on OK. Okay, so notice here's my change here. And and this is only going to be affecting the citation style because it is the connection between this citation style and my Zotero library. If I went over and went to my Zotero library, I know this is kind of tricky, isn't it? Let's go find my Zotero library again. And let's see, I think this is what I was looking at, how the states shape the nations. No, it was disenfranchising. There we are. If I make a change here, I'm going to add a few G's to King's name. And I go back and I refresh with my Zotero. Refresh button. You'll notice that, did I do the wrong one? King. Okay. So I changed it in Zotero. And I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to click on refresh. Ah, there we are. See, it changed it here. Huh. And it also changed it here. Oh, because that's not the one that I changed. All right. I'm sorry. I'm just totally messing this up. So I'm going to make y'all a video. But what I really want to emphasize is it's hard to do these things live, let me tell you. What I really want to emphasize is that if I edit and make a change, then this entry is no longer connected to the original entry over here. And so what happens is that means if I want to change citation styles or something, like we were working with APA, let's say I'm going to go to my document preferences and I'm going to change it from APA style to MLA. Let's go find MLA. There it is. Okay, I'm going to click on OK. What happened is that this entry changed for MLA style, but the one that I edited the citation for did not. So once I made that change in the document, rather than in the Zotero record, this changed to MLA style, but this one did not. But these still go ahead and change because I didn't make a change for the in-text citation. They're still connected to the Zotero record, but this particular citation, because I edited it, is not. So that's why you really want to, oh, yes, you can automatically change. That's one of the really cool things about Zotero. But as we see, if you edit stuff inside your Word document, you lose the ability not to change everything when you switch citation styles, but to actually switch that particular citation. So I'm sorry this was kind of messy, but what I really want to emphasize is that means that you really want to make sure you have good bibliographic data in your record, and you want to be careful with your citations. If when you're doing this, everything just becomes a mess, you know, there's a consistent problem with a whole lot of entries that you're going to have to fix, this is what I recommend. Rather than fixing, rather than making your edits inside of Zotero, what I would do is I would actually copy this document. So you have two versions of it. One you're going to call the live document, and the other you're going to go over here and you're going to remove your field codes. Once you remove your field codes, you have lost all connection whatsoever to Zotero. That is now just a plain old Word document. It is not connected to Zotero in any way. And then you could just go in and make your connections fast without worrying about Zotero's editor the way you would always do it. But you still have the original version of it that is tied to Zotero. So if you need to change citation styles, etc., you can do that. There's also another reason why you want to actually remove field codes and make what's called a flat version of your document. And that is that some content management systems, sometimes, for faculty, or if you're actually submitting an article to a journal, sometimes the fact that you have all these invisible Zotero codes in there that actually, connect your document to your Zotero library can really mess them up. So for the version of if your article or your paper that you're submitting to a professor or to a journal, you should probably always use a flattened one. And you can see I'm going to click on remove field codes, and it's going to tell me, let's see if I can share this over here. There we are. Removing field codes will prevent Zotero from updating citations and bibliographies in this document. Are you sure you want to continue? I say yes. Now this is just a Word document. No Zotero connection whatsoever. Although if I wanted to, I could start, adding Zotero stuff down here as well. So I'm sorry that got a little bit messy, but I hope you got the main idea of it, which is, if you're going to have to edit, do it minimally, and make sure and kind of keep a the best thing to do is kind of, unless you're making a few small edits, I would always actually make a copy of your document, remove field codes, and edit it in the flattened version. Is that making sense? Probably not. But when you think about it, it will. And there's a lot more information about Zotero and Word documents on the Zotero site that will kind of express this a little bit more. And I'm trying to work on a video to talk about this, but haven't quite got it done. But when I will, I'll put it on the Global Campus page. All right, I spent a little bit more time on this than I wanted to because I kind of screwed up. So I'm going to kind of just go through some other stuff really fast to kind of emphasize this. But I want to talk a little bit about online Zotero. And online Zotero is the thing that makes Zotero so powerful for global students. So let's go ahead and maximize our screen and see how it works. So I'm going to go to Zotero, and I'm going to go ahead, let's close out our screen here. I'm going to log in with my Zotero account, or at least one of them. And when I log in, this is actually going to be a record. This is going to be the same thing that I have on my desktop as of the last time that I synced, as of the last time that I clicked on this little button here and said, anything new added online goes to your desktop version, anything new added in your desktop version goes online. So let's sync really quickly. And you can see there's all the stuff that I've kind of did, the stuff that I added, etc. All right, looks like they're both pretty much the exact same thing. And we can see that in my library, although the dates are going to be a little bit different. All right, let's take a look at the online version. One of the things you can see is everything is there. There's all my tags. I can search by them. I can look at particular collections. I'm going to go over and look at my book reviews collection. And you can see when I do this that if I look at something, let's go ahead and look at this one, there's all my bibliographic data. There's my article. I can open this up and actually read it online regardless of where I am. Here's my annotation that I wrote. And I can go ahead and edit this if I want, because all of this information is editable at any point. I'm going to go back over here to my collection here. If I want, I can add something to Zotero. It looks like it's going to take a second to catch up with me. So while I'm doing that, I'm going to point out these little buttons over here. I can create an item totally online, although it's a real pain because you're doing a lot of drag and drop. So, it's something I only do for a couple of items. But once I'm back in my library, let's go over, wait for Zotero to catch up. I think it's actually kind of just gotten a little bit confused with the fact that we're in Blackboard. But if you look at these icons, one of these icons over here that you can't see very well actually has some lines. And what that enables you to do is to create a citation out of whatever it is that you're looking at very briefly. It gives you a choice of about 5 or 6 options, and you can say, cite the item that I've chosen for me out of APA, and it'll take it from there. There we are. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So I'm going to go over here to book reviews. I'm going to go ahead and choose, I have to wait a minute. Should have just worked with my library to wait for it to catch up to me again. But I could go ahead and add something. I can go ahead and add something to a collection. I can remove it from a collection if I want. I can just delete it, get rid of it, move it to the trash. And I can also remove it from the trash if I realized I made a mistake. And then I can also edit any item. So, if you are not at home, if you are doing research at your job, at your lunch hour, and they're like, yeah, go to town, do some work. If you're on a work computer or if you're on your own laptop, well, if you're on your own laptop, you have access to everything. But if you're working on a work computer or you're in a public library someplace, everything that you have is accessible via Zotero. You can see if I'm going to choose this one right here, I'm going to select this, and then I'm going to go over to my citation button, and I'm going to say, cite this for me in APA style, and then there it is. And I can copy and paste this into my document. You can see it still has my typo right over there. So that makes it kind of easy. So I have access to everything that I want, regardless of where I am, which is really powerful for people who don't always have the opportunity to do all their work in the same place when they have their own computer and all their stuff. I can add to my Zotero library. I can edit stuff. I can cite stuff. I can read PDFs. I can do all sorts of things, and that makes it really, really powerful. Any questions about this? As long as I'm here, let's just quickly look at editing. Let's say I want to edit something. I'm going to choose my edit menu, and then I can just go ahead and, edit whatever I want. I will have to remember to go delete that. So I'm going to go ahead and save it. There it is. I can upload files if I want. I can do etc. And then when I get back home that day, all I have to do is open up my own laptop or my own desktop and click on that sync button, if it doesn't already start syncing, and that will update my desktop Zotero so it has the exact same information as the web-based Zotero. So this is really powerful because, as you can see, this enables me to actually work separately from my own computer, but also sometimes you may have two computers. You may have a laptop that you take with you to class, but you really prefer the ergonomics of a desktop. So this enables me to actually make a change on my laptop, sync it online to Zotero.org, and then sync it again to my computer at home. Now, if you want, let's talk a little bit about the logistics of it. So I'm going to go over here to settings, just very briefly. One thing that I want to emphasize is privacy. And I'm a pretty public person. And right now I'm publishing my entire Zotero library. So if you actually went online and you did WSU Lorena Zotero, you'd actually find my Zotero library, and you'd find all the bibliographic information for the stuff I have in it. Because right now I'm publishing it, but I don't publish my notes. My notes is really kind of my intellectual stuff. And really, for students, most of the time, unless you really want to be open, and sometimes you do, I really recommend not publishing your library, definitely not publishing your notes, and making sure that you hide everything from search engines. This might be something you can change your mind about later, but it's good to default to privacy. The other thing is I'm going to go over here to storage. Zotero is a freemium program. That means that if you use it just on your computer, on your desktop or a laptop, it'll never cost you a dime. The data lives in your computer, the program lives on a separate application or in your Firefox, depending on which version you use, you are good to go. If you decide to take advantage of the online version of Zotero, you will never get charged for the bibliographic data or the notes, but once you start uploading files, PDFs, Word documents, screenshots like we talked about last week, that starts taking up storage. So Zotero gives you a certain amount of free storage. And if I want, you can see I'm not using that much of it. And at any point, if I decide I need more storage, I can purchase additional storage. For my main Zotero account, I do the $20 option. I spend more than $20 on coffee in a week. And the advantage of being able to access my PDFs anywhere I am is really, really very powerful, because honestly, that free 300 goes pretty fast. So I really recommend using the online version of Zotero because it's so convenient, and doing the $20 option. And then maybe if you need to, bulking up to the $60 option, which I'm actually kind of thinking about doing right now. In addition to paying for your Zotero storage, this actually helps Zotero kind of improve over time. It helps them in their roadmap to providing additional resources and services. Okay, the last thing that I want to talk about is Zotero groups. Let's go back. Let's actually go look at a couple of groups right here. And if I want, I can create a group. And a group can be public. Anyone can join. Anyone can see. It can be public closed. Anyone can see, but only invited people can join, or it can be private. Private groups are the ones that I really recommend. You have those with people you trust, and you have to be logged in to see stuff. So only people that you want to see your things can actually see your things. Let's see how it actually works inside Zotero. So I'm going to go back, open up my Zotero window, and you'll notice at the bottom, here's my library, here's all my stuff, and then we have my group libraries. And if I look at these, you'll see I have a group called Digital Comics, one called Information Literacy Framework, Lorena Test. A lot of these are test groups because this is like my testing account, but Information Literacy Framework is actually a real group. So if this is a shared group with other people, if somebody else added something to this group and I want to add it to my own Zotero library, I can just go ahead and take this, and I'm just going to go ahead and drag this into Global Connections. And at this point now, I have forked my version of this. It is, right now, it is exactly the same as what they have here, but once I go into Global Connections and start playing around with it, adding notes, tags, maybe making some changes to the bibliographic data, it is now completely separated from the group version. If I want to add something to a group, then what I would do is I would just go over and I would just do the opposite. I would take my item and move it into digital comics. And now if I go look at digital comics, you can see there it is. And you can see when I did this that it only sent just the bibliographic data, because that's where your settings become important. This is how it works. The person who creates the group library is responsible for any storage that might occur if they allow people to upload files. Copyright and license regulations require that if you're sharing files, you only share them with other WSU users because you got them from databases that WSU subscribed. So that's why I recommend that that groups are private groups, especially if you're going to share documents. So if I create a group, I say what you can share. I'm like, you can share your notes. That's all you can share. But then, actually, I would have actually created that when I actually created the group. I would give the parameters. So I'd say you can share groups. But then you'd be like, you know what? I don't actually want to share my notes. So I'm going to say for all of mine, I'm not sharing anything. So even though the group creator said you could share notes, you're like, nope, I'm just sharing bibliographic information. So I have a lot more information about this on my library guide. I'm kind of talking about Zotero and groups. I have a handout about it and I think I just put it in the guide. But the advantage of this is that this makes it really easy to work with other WSU students. If you want, you can share items. You can actually share notes, if you decide you want to. I can go in, if the group creator says I want to share notes, and you as a group member says, okay, I'll share notes, then you can actually share notes inside the group library working with the unique item. I can go ahead and add a note here. Note. And now anyone inside this collection will see that note. Or I can just have the notes inside my version of this. So two different versions. We have the group version, which is stored online on Zotero.org right here, and then you can copy something over to your own library, and then it's yours to kind of do things with however you want. Kind of tricky, I know, but very, very beneficial for doing group projects with people. And then later on, once you kind of take out the actual sharing of PDFs, very good for doing group projects with people who might be at other institutions. So I know I just threw a lot of information at you, and I probably didn't explain it as well as I could have, but I hoped you've gotten the general idea of how powerful Zotero can be, especially for global students who do have to sometimes work at a place where they don't have all their stuff, and also have to do a lot of group projects with people who are at different places. Rather than emailing things to people, you can actually use Zotero groups. And one of the things about a Zotero group, let's quickly look at this, is that when I'm in my groups, I'm going to go look at my own groups here. I'm going to go look at my groups. Let's see. Every group has the ability to have a threaded discussion. It shows off recently added items. It has a description. It gives you the owner information, and you can see who the members are. And this is all controlled by the person who created the group. So this becomes a very powerful tool for global campus students, and I really encourage you all to use this. So I know I kind of took a long time. We have 4 minutes left, and that's not very many. And I know this last part was really confusing with Zotero groups and Zotero Online and Zotero with Microsoft Word, but I hope I've given you enough information to actually want to play around with this and figure all of this out, because actually my kind of fumbling around, it's really not horribly difficult, and it is incredibly powerful and incredibly useful. And this is something you take with you. When you graduate from WSU, you take all of this with you into whatever you do, especially if you're going to work in a profession that requires professional development or publication. Are you guys all stunned? I know. Any questions for our last 3 minutes?
As we're waiting for questions, I did drop in a survey, so if everyone can take that, I'd really appreciate it to get feedback on what you thought of this program and also what you want for future programs. And as a quick announcement, our next Global Connections webinar will be on the early FAFSA. So any of you who are interested in getting financial aid, this can be very helpful because the FAFSA rules did change for this year. And we will be putting the link to register for that. Once again, that will be on November 9th at 6 p.m. All right, and if anyone has questions, now is the time to ask them.
And again, I do want to remind everyone that I have other Global Connections videos available online. And I'll go ahead and put the link in the chat box. And oops, go find it the right place. And you can also find all the other really great videos that other people have created for Global Connections in the video vault. Thank you all. Really, I just cannot emphasize how powerful Zotero is, and I'm sorry that kind of I messed things up a little bit, but I hope you got the general idea that this is a really cool program that can really make your scholarship, your academic work a lot easier, move you from silos, as I talked about last week, to the database of you, where all your information is available to you anytime you need it.
Thank you, Lorena. We appreciate your time, and please do check out Lorena's resources on the libraries page, and we'll see you all soon. Have a good night.
Bye-bye, everyone.